You're still watching One News Now. I'm Jago Castro. After 4 years of hiatus, the Great British Festival finally returned last week. And we have on the show Chris Nelson, Executive Director of the British Chamber of Commerce Philippines, to talk about what went down at the two-day event. Thank you for joining us this morning, Chris, and of course, congratulations on your event.
Thank you very much, Diego, and good morning to you and all your viewers.
Yes, Chris, of course, we'd like to find out, after 4 years, what were the highlights of the Great British Festival that was held last March 25 to 26?
Well, it was. Thanks very much for highlighting it. We're back after 4 years. The response was very strong. We had 38 companies and organizations demonstrating a clear presence in the Philippines. We had, of course, our ambassador, Laure Beaufils, and myself. We cut the opening ribbon. We had extensive performances, which, of course, highlighted the schooling here, the British School of Manila. We had performances highlighting, obviously, British music and culture. And overall, I think people saw, A, the close association between the two countries, also the growing trade and investment between the Philippines and the UK. And I think it sets a good basis for hopefully continuing this going forward.
Yes, Chris, of course, we'd like to know how many people attended the event this year.
Okay, so based on the initial indications from Fort Bonifacio Development Corporation, which is the one that we liaise with and did all the work, and we'd like to give them a big thanks, there was over 50,000 people in the 2 days. Of course, you're also going to get other people who are visiting BGC. Any time of weekend, they estimate there's over 200,000. So there could actually have been more than that, but we're estimating at least 50,000.
Oh, that's a good number, Chris, and it looks like it was successful. And of course, what the people would like to know is, when will be the next Great British Festival? Are there plans for this already?
Well, we're already starting thinking about it. Obviously, this, I must say, was the initiative to do it on behalf of the British Embassy, and I'd like to thank the Deputy Ambassador, Alistair White. We've already had some initial discussions. We're looking currently provisionally at a date in February next year. We'll probably try and move it maybe a month earlier. Obviously, try to time it so the weather's a little cooler, because obviously we know we're in the summer now. But yes, it is hot. But we're also going to look and also take ideas on board. We'd like to see it expanded. We'd like to see more interaction. But yes, we're already starting thinking about next year, because this kind of follows on also, Diego, how we see the continuing growth, obviously, of British companies here. And we'd like to expand upon the trade and investment, which continues to grow.
And are you looking to make the event bigger, or what do you plan to add? More dates, hopefully? And the event, of course, was in partnership with the British Embassy, as you mentioned. Are you looking to co-organize the event with other institutions?
Well, let me also add that the third party, which played a very important role, was the British Council. They were the ones who managed the entertainment and the culture program. So a lot of thanks to them as well. So yes, it'll be all three organizations. I think that we'll sit and discuss how we can further expand it, how we can make it even more engaging. I think that, first of all, the games or the interactive element obviously works very well. We'd like to expand the food and beverage section. And I think in terms of making it bigger, I think maybe more in terms of presence. We'll give ourselves more time. We actually did this in a relatively short period of time. I think the overall time was 4 months. Obviously, we can now set ourselves almost a year now. But look, we look to expand and reinforce it. And highlight again some of the big qualities. As you probably see behind me here, we've got quality pork from Britain. That was highlighted by One World Butchers in our event, and that's a growing demand. And I think some of the major companies will be there, and we hope to see even more. We had obviously Shell, PruLife. We had some of our newer members, CyberQ. Obviously, cybersecurity is a key factor. So we'd look to expand upon that presence, make it even more engaging, and also see how we can get actually more retail outlets and areas around us involved.
We'll be definitely looking forward to the next event, Chris. But if you don't mind, let's move on to another topic. The British Chamber of Commerce will, I understand, hold a forum next week called Breaking Economic Barriers, Making the Philippines an Investment Destination. What should we expect from this event? Is, in your opinion, the Philippines a good investment destination for British companies?
Well, I think it's a growing level of interest in the Philippines. As I said, we've been highlighting to companies and fellow chambers back in the UK. I'd just like to highlight that obviously during the previous administration of President Duterte, they passed 3 key economic bills further liberalizing the economy. That momentum has been maintained by President Marcos, and we welcome that. And we'd like to see further liberalization. We'd like to highlight the recent signing of RCEP. We'd like to also note that they're looking at obviously the economic clauses within the Constitution. And finally, I'd just like to highlight the UK has now joined CPTPP. That's the acronym of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And I know now that the Philippines is also considering whether it wishes to look at that as a possibility. And we welcome that. I think that what you'll see here is that with these speakers, that the Philippines is further opening up, and those liberalizations are highly welcome. And as we've emphasized before, we think the Philippines is a very important market in its own right, but also if we get those laws and further liberalization and opening up the economy, it will further bring companies in and gives them a gateway to Southeast Asia.
And you mentioned about the Philippines opening up for other countries to come in and invest. How many companies do you expect to, British companies, do you expect to invest in the Philippines this year, and how about next year? And what industries are we looking at, Chris?
So look, in terms of our side, we've always focused very heavily in terms of food and beverage sector on the SME side. We're always seeing people looking to do partnerships. I think on a more wider scale, and again, I compliment the embassy. We work closely with their Department of Business, which is led here by Lindsay Gilbert Crouch, and they're looking probably at infrastructure. I think there was an announcement recently. There was a minister visited last week. They were looking at partnerships with particular focus on the green energy sector. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there. But again, we continue to urge, keep liberalizing that economy, because obviously we live in a very competitive environment. And we need to make sure that we keep promoting the Philippines, which we do on a continuous basis to our companies back in the UK.
And the country recently ratified the RCEP. What does the Philippines stand to gain from this deal?
Well, the RCEP is the largest trading bloc in the world. I think that gives great access to the Philippines overall. And I think it adds a very important dimension. I mean, I think the Philippines will benefit from that access. And then linking it to, as I said before, that we want companies to come to the Philippines. We want them then to be able to access the larger market. RCEP further supports that. It was a priority of Secretary Pascual for the Department of Trade and Investment, and we're very pleased to see, and congratulations to the Senate and the people behind that for moving and getting it ratified recently.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Chris Nelson, Executive Director over at the British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you too. Our pleasure.